not appear, whereas nevertheless the meditator's aggregates do appear to an observer and have not ceased. Nirvana without remainder is achieved when that exalted person dies and attains a mental body in a pure land. According to the more usual interpretation, a unique feature of the Prasangika presentation is that nirvana without remainder is attained before nirvana with remainder. With and without remainder are taken to refer to remaining appearances of true existence. Thus during meditative equipoise on emptiness an exalted person does not perceive any appearance of true existence, whereas in the subsequent period such appearances are once more present.
Naga King's Ornament for Thought, Explanation on the 400 on the Middle Way. By Bo-driil den Bainima, Bod Sprolb Stan Pa Naima, ca. Also omits Dharmadesa's analogies. It deals briefly with the first 8 chapters and concentrates mainly on the second half of the text. Bo-driil's explanation of the stanzas also includes some unusual interpretations of the Prasangika system, a few of which are included here. He identifies conceptions of a self of persons as the root of obstructions to liberation and conceptions of a self of phenomena as the root of obstructions to omniscience, thus distinguishing between these two misconceptions on the grounds of subtlety. He further says that Hinayana nirvana is attained by understanding the person's lack of true existence, while Mahayana nirvana, complete enlightenment, is attained by understanding the selflessness of phenomena. More usually the conception of a self of persons is said to arise from the conception of a self of phenomena, both of which are said to act as obstructions to liberation. It is therefore asserted that hearers and solitary realizers must meditate on both the selflessness of the person and of phenomena in order to attain liberation.
Describing the Mahayana paths, Bo-driil states that both obstructions to liberation and omniscience can be divided into speculative and innate obstructions. The speculative ones in both categories are eliminated on the first Bodhisattva ground, while the innate ones in both categories are eliminated gradually from the second ground onwards. In this context, a more commonly accepted interpretation of the Prasangika system is that there are speculative and innate obstructions to liberation. Such a division, however, is not made regarding obstructions to omniscience, which are divided into the manifest and that part composed of seeds. Furthermore, those who have a Mahayana disposition from the beginning do not start to eliminate obstructions to omniscience until they reach the 8th Bodhisattva ground, when all obstructions to liberation have already been eliminated. Bo-driil writes that the emptiness of one aggregate, one source, and one element is the emptiness of all knowable phenomena. Gyel-tsap emphasizes that the nature of emptiness is always the same, but that the emptiness of one thing is not another thing's emptiness. Otherwise, when an inferential awareness cognizes the emptiness of a pot, it would necessarily also cognize the emptiness of a piece of woolen cloth.
In an interesting section at the end of his commentary on the 6th chapter, Bo-driil explains how specifically understanding the true nature of the mind acts as the most powerful antidote to disturbing attitudes and emotions. See Spray, Explanation of the 400 on the Middle Way, by Ga, Tak Nawang Sang, Ka Thog Ngagd Bangd Palb Zang, includes explanation of the analogies for the first 8 chapters and is closely based on Gyel-tsap's commentary, which is used verbatim in many places. Ghatak cites copiously from texts by Maitreya, Bhavavika and others, and also from Candrakirti's supplement. In addition, he introduces his own personal interpretations, sometimes at variance with Gyel-tsap's. For instance, commenting on Stanza. Chapter 8, he states that to attain liberation one does not need to cognize that emptiness and dependent arising lack inherent existence, because the conception of a self is the root of cyclic existence. Thus the antidote is to understand selflessness. In saying this, he makes a distinction regarding the subtlety of what is negated when the selflessness of persons and the selflessness of phenomena are cognized.
He appears to make a similar distinction when pointing out how Stanza Chapter 8 shows the complete paths of persons of the 3 capacities. The first line indicates how, as part of the practices of a person of the least capacity, demeritorious action must be stopped in order to ensure a good rebirth. The second line shows the main practice of a person of intermediate capacity, the understanding of selflessness, which is the training in wisdom. Implicit in this are the other 2 kinds of training, in meditative stabilization and in ethics, and thus everything necessary for the attainment of liberation is included. He then goes on to say that the third line encompasses all Mahayana paths of method and wisdom. It does this by indicating the basis of the view, which is the non-inherently existent nature of the emptiness and dependent arising of all phenomena. This pacifies all elaborations, is free from all assertions, and shows the true state of the two truths. He thereby again distinguishes between selflessness of the person and selflessness of other phenomena on the grounds of subtlety. This is not in keeping with the more common interpretation of the Prasangika system, where a distinction is made only with regard to the basis, i.e. persons and phenomena, but not regarding what is negated.
Ghatak reiterates this point in his commentary on Stanza. Chapter 12, when he says that usually emptiness is regarded as a mother, its understanding being the cause for enlightenment in any of the three vehicles. Skillful means is regarded as a father, responsible for the distinctions between the three vehicles. Since two kinds of selflessness were taught, it is his opinion that skillful means is not the only criterion for making such a distinction. This implies a difference based on the kind of selflessness cognized by practitioners of a particular vehicle. In an inspiring passage commenting on Stanza. Chapter 15, Ghatak emphasizes that it is foolish to imagine that we can begin with placement meditation and stresses the great importance of first doing analysis, which employs reasoning in order to ascertain the ultimate properly. The stronger our ascertainment of the ultimate grows, the more the conventional will seem to resemble an illusion. The more skillful we become in establishing the conventional, the better we will be able to distinguish to what ultimate analysis is and is not applicable. Our activity in view will become pure, and we will be able to overcome all confusion with regard to the two truths. Compassion for all those who suffer through not understanding how things are will then arise. Although it is said by some that investigation is a fault, it is impossible to do true meditation without having heard and thought about the subject matter sufficiently.
Interlinear commentary on the Treatise of 400 Stanzas, by Shen Pen Nonghua, Zondgazan Fan Chas Chi Snang Ba, draws primarily on Candrakirti's commentary and illuminates Aryadeva's text in an effective and concise way. Gyel-tsap's life and works. According to traditional biographical sources, Gyel-tsap Dharma-rinchen, or Gyel-tsap Dharma-rinchen, was born at Renong, in the Niangtu, Myang Stad, area of Tsang, where his father was an official. At the age of 10 he was given the vows of a novice monk and received the name Dharma Rinchen. He then learned to read and write and studied valid cognition, Maitreya's ornament for clear realization and its commentaries, as well as texts on higher knowledge and discipline with different masters, but especially with the great Sajjaya, Skaya, Master Rendawa. Rendawa also taught him Madhyamaka philosophy and gave him extensive instruction on Tantra. Along with Dzongkhabye, Gyel-tsap became one of Rendawa's 7 closest disciples and is said by the Sajjayas to have held the complete teaching of their tradition.
While visiting a famous Sajjaya monastery in Zhang, Gyel-tsap distinguished himself by debating on 10 different texts. At the age of 25 he took the vows of a fully ordained monk and then traveled to central Tibet, where he gained a high reputation for scholarship and prowess in debate. Having defeated 2 Sajjaya masters, Gyel-tsap decided to challenge Dzongkhabye. When he arrived at Nyeltuare Nile Stad Are Grong, where Dzongkhabye was teaching, he entered the hall while the discourse was in progress without removing his hat in the customary way. Dzongkhabye noticed him but continued to teach. Gyel-tsap strode up to the throne on which Dzongkhabye was seated and began to mount it. Totally unruffled by this uncouth behavior, Dzongkhabye simply moved over to make room for him and continued. As he listened, Gyel-tsap heard many things he had never heard before from any other scholar, and his arrogance began to subside. First he removed his hat, then he got down from the throne and seated himself among the listeners.